Welcome to the Better Call Saul edition of the Serious TV Drama Podcast with Scot and Dan. I'm Scott, and with me as always, the PPD to my OPP, I'm about to call you Scott, it's Dan.
Hey, it's me, Scott. I'm here in New York. How's it going, you inferior people?
You bastard. Yeah, we are getting a slightly later start than the last several have been. We're doing this well after midnight. We might have a guest join us at some point in the podcast. We don't know. I guess we'll find out. So it'll be a surprise appearance by one of our friends, listeners, and fans of the show. But yeah, we're here to talk about Better Call Saul. I got another minor story beforehand. Do you have anything before I get started, Dan?
No, I don't think so.
How are you doing otherwise? Because I don't want to take up all the time here.
Good. This episode of Saul made me hungry for a chili cheese dog from New Mexico. But other than that, I'm pretty good.
Cool.
You?
I'm just tired. We'll just leave it at that. So, at least a few years ago, I don't know. I think it was when that website or whatever it is called Quora had first started. Quora. I'm sure a lot of people out there are familiar with it. It's one of those websites where someone asks like a random question. It can be pop culture related, it could be history related, or current events, whatever. I think I don't know, maybe I discovered it through Facebook or something. I don't know. I guess way back when I actually answered a few questions at length. I think one of them must have been about Breaking Bad, and one of them must have been something superhero related or movie related. I don't know. Of course, as a result, ever since then, every once in a while, I'll get alerted. I'll get an email asking me to answer a question for someone. I never do. And I get tons of emails for the last few years of people now following me on Quora. I don't follow anyone because I don't care about it. It's a stupid waste of time. I don't care. The reason I bring it up is because like the day before yesterday, I think I got another one of those emails from Quora. And the question was about why is season 4 of Better Call Saul so boring? And I was like, huh. So I went over to the site, read the question, then I read 2 answers, which really sounded like the same person answering it twice, but whatever. They were very long answers, or long-winded answers, but whatever. And it made me think about it, because, I mean, I personally wouldn't describe it that way, but I can understand if someone was going to take a very critical view of the show, them saying that, especially in light of like last week's episode, or the last couple where not a lot has happened or something. I just don't think of the show as boring because I'm always engaged in it, even if it isn't moving at any sort of frenetic pace for most of the storylines. Not that the show needs me to defend it, and there are some minor or some issues maybe with this season so far. I think tonight's episode addressed some of them to a certain extent. And this isn't about knocking people for thinking that way, because I get that why someone would take it that way. I'm just curious how listeners and you felt about something like that, because I'm trying to put our natural pro Better Call Saul bias aside, as I think I try to do all the time, and really look at it more critically. It's like, I could see why people might say that. You know what I'm saying? How are you? How are you feeling about the season so far, leading up to this episode in general?
I have no complaints at all, but I guess maybe I have more patience than some people, and just, I don't have any problem with anything. I don't see why there's a rush. We know this isn't the last season. They have time to get to whatever they need to get to. the characters are going through some stuff. I don't need like somebody to have something bad happen and then a couple episodes of crap and then they talk to a shrink and then they're fine. It's just that's not realistic. So is this okay with me?
Okay. Yeah, I just want to bring it because it's for me. It's they've employed a certain method of storytelling from season one all the way through, and I don't really feel that's changed. So I'm not. I would never get on the show for pacing issues. Pace has always
No.
been. There's never been anything inconsistent about the pace. The only problem with the show at times, it happened during last season after the midpoint because for whatever reason they decided to hit their apex in the middle of the season as opposed to the end of the season, which was an interesting decision. The storytelling can lag a little bit. It's not that I need it to. I mean, look, one of our mutual favorite shows is Mad Men, which will never be accused of being a super high speed show, generally speaking. But I always thought that every episode layered upon layer, about the characters, and there was some progression of plot for the most part. And I think there is with this show too. I think it's just because with this season and why some people might be feeling that way is, again, up until maybe one could say tonight's episode, there wasn't really any sort of the trajectory for Jimmy's character. I think has kind of been wandering, and we're just kind of where it's going. And because it's what he's been involved in is, quite frankly, by TV scale, very small potatoes, so to speak. It's like, I kind of, there may be a tendency like, okay, I kind of want this to amp up a little bit. Not to like Breaking Bad extremes or Saul Goodman extremes, but just, just goose the story along a little bit. Since you're not writing a movie, you've got 10 episodes a season, you can push it just a little further. Again, I'm enjoying it, so I'm not saying it's bothering me, but I'm not going to lie and say I'm not aware of it to a certain extent. But I love the characters and the performances and all the other aspects of the show so much. I'm okay with that, because I'm also more confident that the writers know what they're doing, and this is going to go somewhere. Unlike, say, another show that we discussed last year that you were infinitely more patient than I was with, or most people for that matter. And then with that show, I did have a great fear that I'm not sure they're going to know what they're doing with this, So I have confidence in the show. I'm not knocking it too much, but I'm also aware that it's not perfect, and that's an issue that can happen with this show, I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have no complaint.
Okay.
I mean, I could say more, but I just would be, recycling the same rants I've probably said 50 times before, so there's probably no reason to...
Okay. No, yeah, like I said, I'm not saying it's not about knocking people who feel that way. It's just looking at a different, it's like the movie you saw with your son a week or two ago, 2001. I mean,
yeah.
That's a movie that does, for a lot of people, try a lot of people's patience. And there are people who think it's a work of genius. I'm probably closer to the genius side than I am on the patient side. But I kind of grew up watching that movie over and over as a kid, and it went from something I went to sleep to as a child to really getting it when I was hit my teens and my 20s. So anyway, all right, I'll get off that tangent. Let's get to the show. So let's start talking about tonight's episode of Better Call Saul. Now, tonight's episode was titled Quite the Ride. It was directed by Michael Morris, who is another one of those guys who has, extensive TV credits for shows like, he's directed episodes of Preacher and 13 Reasons Why. Halt and Catch Fire, so he's definitely one of our favorites, and a few others. And it was written by Ann Cherkis, who has actually written a couple previous Better Call Saul episodes, Off-Brand and Rebecca. So thank you, IMDb, for helping me out tonight. So once again, as always, the show is in the hands of some real professionals. Made me kind of curious to go back and check out like Off-Brand and Rebecca to see what storyline she handled then, considering what she was given to work with tonight. I think Rebecca being the wife of Chuck, I guess that was the one where we started delving into the past between Jimmy, Chuck, and his wife a little bit. If I'm remembering that one correctly, I could be wrong, but I think that's the one where that comes up. So let's first tackle. Let's build to how the show began. Let's get there, because I think the most exciting thing about this episode was for a lot of people was going to be those first few minutes, because I'm, as much as anyone might have been surprised by certain cameos we've had in the last few weeks, like the Gale one from a few weeks ago and a few others, I think it's fair to say no one saw a Saul Goodman flashback happening, or flash forward, I guess, happening on this show. So, but let's first talk about something else, which was kind of an interesting thing that they were getting into as far as leading up what's going to happen years later on Breaking Bad. The storylines dealing with Mike, specifically, both early on and then later in the episode, Mike brings two different, I guess they are engineers. I'm not really sure what country the first guy was from. All I know is they had a really nice mustache. But the second guy was certainly very German. And he brings them to the, what do we call? Do we just call it a laundry factory? I don't know what to call it. It's
just like a commercial laundry above the what the future super lab.
Right, commercial one. I guess it's good, because I was like, I can't call it a laundromat. It's a little beyond that.
Yeah.
So basically he brings two different guys there, and the first one clearly knows what he's doing, but he's got his laptop. He checks everything fairly simply and quickly, and gives Mike a very confident estimate about it. Mike gets a call. We clearly know who he's probably getting that call from. Someone who's probably watching everything, as we discover with the second engineer. And that guy's set on his way. I love the whole hood thing, and they have to travel in the hood and can't see, because they kept doing that on. They did it on Breaking Bad as well, if I'm not mistaken. Weren't people taken there, but with the hood on, or am I misremembering that as well?
Yeah, I got that impression, but who knows?
Well, so here's the thing. So they're already getting into the idea of building the super lab now. Of course, right. with the German guy, it sounds like he sounded a lot more realistic about all the issues and problems, which means it's probably going to take a lot longer than the 6 to 7 months that the first guy was predicting.
Yeah.
Not predicting. What do you call it? You know what I mean.
Projecting.
Thank you. I have to admit, I'm kind of a little surprised. I can't decide if I'm pleasantly surprised or not. I'm not annoyed, but I'm a little surprised that they're getting to the super lab stuff already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly thought it was possible, since they had Gale a couple weeks ago, that maybe they'd move forward on that storyline. I don't know, but I certainly wasn't. I didn't give any thought to the actual construction of the super lab. I just figured the laundry had some kind of underground whatever. But I guess I'm sure they talked about it on Breaking Bad. That room probably isn't in the schematics of the blueprints of the original building. So I guess it makes sense. But as to whether or not, I never would have thought this would be something that we would see, or even, I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Well, now the question is going to become how much. They spent the Mike Gus storyline time on this episode just on that. So now the curiosity becomes, is this going to be an ongoing thing during the course of the season or not? Because this was the job Mike was given. As far as is he going to be overseeing it, or is he just bringing the guys there? I get the feeling he's going to be a bit more hands-on, since he's Mr. Just based on what he's been doing. And in being, on his little bullshit and inspecting all the different magical terminals, so maybe he would be the right guy to be kind of supervising and dealing with that kind of stuff, I suppose. I just I'm just surprised because and it's interesting because it's when you see something like that happening, much more so than seeing Gale appear briefly a couple weeks ago. It starts to feel like, oh, are we accelerating things to get to those storylines now? I mean,
Yeah.
and it's also how long did that super lab actually exist before Walter White saw it in Breaking Bad? Because when Walter White sees it, I think it's roughly 2009 or so, 8 or 9. I'm
Yeah.
getting, and this is still this is 6 years earlier. So I'm curious how long it's going to take to build that lab. I'm pretty sure it's not going to take 6 years. And once the lab is built, is that when Gale goes into his employ to work there? In which case, maybe we'll see him a lot sooner than we had thought, or at least I had thought. I think you thought he might be coming back sooner than I did.
Well, yeah, I mean, who knows exactly what the timetable is? I mean, we've only seen the one flashback scene where Gale's kind of unpacking all the equipment down in the super lab at some unspecified time. I'm not really sure when they're going to do it, but I am kind of looking forward to seeing what they do with this. As it comes to this, the Breaking Bad type stuff, I have to admit, I don't mind seeing this kind of thing rather than just non-stop cartel violence as the Breaking Bad half of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, this kind of, it is just architecture or construction and stuff like that isn't super super compelling, but to everybody. But I think it'll be cool to see. I mean, Breaking Bad, they always had the the cool science element and this kind of stuff, and this definitely kind of scratches that wavelength. I think.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to spend a tremendous amount of time on the actual construction because I just don't foresee that. I imagine they'll, but if they're really, it seems like they're really going to be moving forward. My guess is there'll be certain things that'll happen. There could be a certain issue or not. I mean, I do think if you're going to be dealing with characters like Mike and Gus Fring, whatever, it's not going to be simply about the supervision of the building of the super lab, but I think something will arise, at least a couple times with it, an issue, a problem, whatever. Much like the German engineer was citing that there are many, many problems that can happen by building this thing. So, they're going to have to carve out this entire thing and, and blast it. And the fact that it all has to be done, without anybody being aware of it, which is that's what makes that project so difficult. It's like you got to do it under the cover of night and with no one being aware of it. I mean, how do you get away with blasting all that stuff if there's a nearby town? Because you would tend to hear something like that. But I guess they will figure out some way around that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it is cool that they went from having a Great Escape homage last week to now they're working on tunneling. So it'll be interesting to see if there'll be some kind of motorcycle escapades going on in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure. But.
Well, we did have some motorcycles tonight, but there were no escapades with them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and it was also fun to see that Gus Fring can speak German. So that was interesting. It does make it makes me that much more curious about Gus Fring. It's like, I wonder how many other languages he speaks. I almost kind of want more backstory on Gus Fring, although I wonder if what we've already got in those episode or two back in Breaking Bad days and what we've gotten here might be the extent of it. But then again, it's probably just same way for someone like Mike or something. And I guess, in a way, Gus Fring's the more mysterious Gus Fring is, maybe the more interesting he is. The more, sometimes when you explain characters, especially antagonists, I feel they sometimes get less interesting rather than more so.
Right.
Like Kingpin on Daredevil, just saying. There you go. Because he was really cool, and then he wasn't. So I guess we could switch over to Kim now. So Kim has clearly followed up on when she was hanging out at the courthouse last week. So now it looks like she's actually has been taking these little cases. I love the fact they brought back the prosecuting attorney that Jimmy had run-ins with earlier in the show's run, and that And she might have done a better job of dealing with him than Jimmy ever did. Quite frankly, I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, it was cool, and I was glad we got to see that guy again too. I mean, he's always been kind of a cool character.
Yeah, it was funny because I think when the show first started, because we see him very early on, I think he might even, I think he's even in the pilot. I could be wrong. I think he is.
Yeah, he is great.
Yeah, he is. And I think much like much like how I misread a lot of things about the show when it first started, as did many people, I think. I thought that was a character we were going to see a lot more because I assumed the show about this kind of somewhat shady lawyer who still tries to do the right thing, blah blah blah, and this is the guy he's going to be, locking horns with all the time. Same way we thought Howard Hamlin was going to be like the the annoying antagonist all the time, whatever. And obviously that isn't the way that character or storyline played out, as we've talked about, a million times before. So yeah, I was really happy to see him come back, and just have a really fun scene, that goes from outside the courtroom, and the fact that they're still negotiating, and I love it that their backs are to the camera all the way up until the judge just walking into the courtroom. I thought that was great.
Huh.
And of course the punchline to that early one is it's like the no good deed goes unpunished. That she basically took a kid who was looking at a potential 18-month jail sentence and got it knocked all the way down to 4 months probation, and he's still being an ungrateful little piece of crap.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Maybe they took that kid from 2018 and sent him back in time.
Introduce him to our president. No, we're not going to go there. Bad man.
Yeah. What? Have one now? When did that happen? I left the political group. Did they actually elect a president this time, and we still got a? I don't know. I can't think of a good insult right now. I'll just say jackass. Add some long, complicated adjective to jackass, and that's about right.
Well, we still have the orange orangutan in the office. So. So then we see that she has another client, a woman named Denise, whatever. I love the way they framed that shot. I thought I'm sure this caught your eye when we don't actually see her, and Kim is all the way in the background of the frame, and we're getting like an angle on the house, and the fact that she's actually saying I don't want to go to jail, and the way they took the angle of the shot, it was basically focusing on all the bars across the window. So it looked like she's already in jail. It's an almost humorous shot because like I don't want to go to jail, and like because the way they close up on it, it looks like she's behind bars already. But I guess the big point of a lot of stuff with Kim is that she gets that call from Paige at Mesa Verde, which she essentially blows off until later that afternoon, 4:00, because she wants to deal with this client who's who's looking at a first-time drug charge kind of a deal. And when she goes to Mesa Verde, the Paige comes to meet her at the door. And okay, the way that scene went down, there was a lot of things I thought were going to happen that didn't happen. Number one, I thought for a second there, the way Paige was speaking to her, she was going to get fired because of her attitude and the way she was acting. But then she didn't do that. And then when she was kind of, telling Kim, when we say, basically like when we say now, we mean now, we need to be your sole focus. I thought Kim was going to say, forget it and walk out on it. And she didn't.
Yeah.
So, and again, those might be the two more obvious things. So, kudos to the show for going in a direction that's, less obvious. But it almost gave that scene maybe an unexpected little bit of tension to it, because I was kind of thinking it was going to go down in one of those two ways as opposed to the way it did go down.
Yeah. Oh, I think what we're kind of seeing here is it's definitely kind of similar to. I mean, Kim has a really good job, but she's kind of just sabotaging it because maybe it just doesn't feel like a good fit, and it's really that's exactly what happened with Jimmy in season 2. So it's kind of interesting to see how the two. How the two are reacting in kind of a similar situation, even though she's definitely more stable than Jimmy on the whole, but considering what she's been through lately,
Yeah, it is a kind of an interesting parallel to the season two Jimmy stuff. You're right. That's a good observation.
I'm
Um,
surprised coming with anything because I've actually been just kind of listening to. I've been. I mean, I'm paying attention, but when you said orange orangutan as president, I've been kind of been thinking about like imagining Dr. Zayas as president and how much better things would be.
oh boy, you damn dirty ape you. So,
I should drop in that Simpsons music now. I think I still have it downloaded.
I'm sure you do. So, but with all this, while she's at home, Jimmy's not really. She's not really letting in on what's going on with her. Which technically, they're both not letting each other in on what's really going on with them. Obviously, though she does have a kind of a sweet moment later on with Jimmy when she's tending to his wounds, but. I mean, as far as her own story progression, I think what occurs at the courthouse and the Mesa Verde stuff is really the Kim storyline, really, for this episode. And everything else in the episode is really, it's Jimmy time, I think, as far as I'm concerned. That makes sense?
Right.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and no offense to Mike and Kim. We love those characters. We love those actors. But...
Oh, speaking of Mike, did was the guy that helped load the first engineer type guy into the van, was he one of Mike's guys from Breaking Bad? Because he looked familiar, and I didn't take the time to look it up, but he definitely looked like one of those guys.
He might have been. I honestly didn't get a good look at him. I was probably the book or notebook I usually use to take notes in. I ran out of pages. Actually, now it looks like a really creepy, bizarre book because it's black leather bound and it's all scribbles about like Better Call Saul and Legion for like 100 pages. It's really weird. The last few seasons. So
just imagining if like you end up killing somebody and they find that and look at it for evidence and trying to figure out what it has to do with anything.
It's like this is the weirdest manifesto ever. So I was hunting around looking for. I was like opening up drawer after drawer because I was like, oh, I always have a bunch of notebooks somewhere. And of course, every notebook I have is filled with, let's just say, God knows what, leave it at that. Until I found one, which I kid you not, is, I'm just measuring it by eye here. It's 2 inches by 3.5 inches, maybe. It's like a little teeny tiny memo pad. It's like really tiny. So I'm trying to write in this, and it's it's different. Yes, let's get to the what maybe made this episode so highly talked about. Let's start off with that opening flashback or flash forward. It's a flash. It's weird how to refer to things because it's a flash forward for this series, but it's a flashback for the series that it really was happening during.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, when there's always a chance that all of this Better Call Saul is a flashback by Gene, so this would still be a flashback if we use that text.
It could be a flashback within a flashback. Okay, so they kicked off this episode. Now we get some energy going here. We kicked off this episode with a scene that we never saw in Breaking Bad. But it undoubtedly would have taken place during the final season, most likely in between the episodes of Ozymandias and Granite State, because that's the only time frame that makes sense, because by Granite State we're already dealing with Saul and Walter dealing with the the guy who helped disappear them. The vacuum cleaner dude, whatever, Ed, I think his name was. So we're in that set that we haven't seen for years now, with the whole Constitution written across the walls and the columns, which at least one of which is toppled, of course. And I love the fact that now we've gotten to see Francesca as a character on Better Call Saul, and then what a sweet, nice person she's always been on Better Call Saul. And then when you see her in this scene that takes place during in the Breaking Bad era, you realize, oh yeah, she wasn't so nice at that point anymore. She was just kind of perpetually annoyed and grumpy all the time. So,
Yeah. Now I got a question about this. Now this scene, um, where she kind of makes Saul, excuse me, give her more money.
hmm
Um, is that taking place? Is that like right before? Or I mean, I remember when Walt was, when she did the same thing with Walt. Is that
hmm
taking place? When did that take place on Breaking Bad? Because I don't remember exactly. I just remember when he broke the window. But is that like right before this? I mean, did that take place right after this? I mean,
no,
and
that's
then she
before.
just
No, that's before this. That's
okay.
that's that's
Yeah,
before this.
that's what I thought. But it's been a little while, so I wasn't sure. But it definitely would have been funny if that scene where Walt came there looking for Salt because he needed the number to get away or again or something like that. But it would have been really funny if she had just got extra money out of Saul and then got more money from Walt for breaking the window right after that.
No, no, no. It's more the other way around. Although when
Yeah.
Walt does that to her, it's it's significantly before this. It's not like
Yeah.
within the same day or two. It's definitely. Although the thing we always have to remember with Breaking Bad is that all the seasons generally run right into one another. So actually a lot of them, at least those first four seasons, and in fact most of season five until you get to the little time jumps, take place within a fairly compressed amount of time. But yeah, that took place. Yeah, so basically she pretty much not what's the word, held up both of them for money, which is
Yeah.
pretty awesome actually if you think about
Yeah. Totally.
it. Yeah, so the whole scene is playing out that Saul Goodman he's got to get the hell out of Dodge. He's busting through one wall for another cachet of money or whatever. He's loading bags with rolls of money. They're obviously because they're still in their little roll kind of thing, so they're obviously from drug money and stuff like that. While Francesca's shredding document after document, and by the end of it, he pretty much tells her she needs to dump these bags of shredded paper like miles away in separate dumpsters, and then that's when she's giving him the look, and I couldn't believe he was only going to give her like the one roll of money. I was like, really? Come on. So I love the puss on her face, which is something straight out of Sarah Huckabee Sanders for a second there. He has to give her another one. Wow, another political reference. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And then he makes the call, and that's when I remember it was like when he's asking about like a dust filter. I was like, oh yeah, it was like it was like a vacuum cleaner. What do you call it? Cover for what he did or something like that. I don't know if it was vacuum cleaners. I think it was.
Yeah. It's a vacuum cleaner repair shop.
Remember, I've talked about it before. I've never rewatched season 5. I've watched the first 4 seasons a number of times over the years, way back when. I've never seen season 5 again. So any memory I have of that season is basically based on watching it the week it aired. Have not seen them since. So I have an excuse if I forget something from, was it 5 years ago now or so.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was interesting because I mean, then after he makes the call, and I think then we just close with just him just standing there in the office, kind of like taking it all in, or how everything is kind of collapsed around him, and he's just trying to, he's just on the run for his life, and you realize, and then that, which of course all the super Breaking Bad fans were all now remembering his situation and being terrified of Walter White, and who is it who might be after him after all, who he's worried about at that point in time. But it kind of, in a weird way, it was weird to see him just as pure Saul Goodman again, because it's been so long. I mean,
Right.
they keep hinting or nudging him along that way, but he still has the soul of Jimmy McGill, grounding him still even up to this point. Although it keeps continuing to slip away from him, I think.
I don't think we've seen too much Jimmy this season. It's still Jimmy, but there doesn't seem to be. I mean, I can't think of anything he's done this season that has been. Not that has been unselfless. I can't think of the word I'm trying to say.
I would say some of his
Or
interactions with
oh,
Kim would be,
yeah, I
because
don't know.
because
His interactions with Kim, it seemed. I mean, I think that for me, they seem like they're less caring. It's more of just like Jimmy wants attention. Jimmy wants this. Even there's doesn't just. I don't see any empathy really going on. Not for himself or for her. He just kind of
hmm.
wants some. I mean, I
Uh,
just.
I
When I see somebody, I mean, it means when they try that hard, usually it's about them, not the other person, and that's what I see.
uh, I guess I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
I think he was having a better grip on his humanity in the first couple episodes of the season. Obviously, doing the Chuck's death and that throwing him for a loop, and of course, then we had that little switch flip at the end of that episode with how he speaks to Howard. Excuse me. Um, no, I thought there was some. I thought there were some genuine moments between them earlier on. Um, I still think they are to a certain extent. I'm not. I won't. Not. I won't say they're not genuine because he's hiding stuff from her, because she's, although not as bad, because what he's doing is a little bit on the shady side, or more so. Um, she's hiding stuff from him as well. So they're both kind of guilty of this, a little bit of sin of omission as far as speaking with one another. It's just what he's doing is really, I don't think she would approve of, whereas what she's doing is okay, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, I still don't think he's quite he hasn't quite Saul Goodman yet. He hasn't gotten to that point.
No,
Um,
I agree.
but he is. But again, that it's the whole transformation thing, or I don't know if that's the right word, but because the thing with with the Saul Goodman character is, because one can say, does one look at Jimmy McGill and the quote unquote Slippin' Jimmy persona that he had at one time in his life as almost two different phases? Because Slippin' Jimmy was like the fast talking con man kind of thing that was running scams and cons and whatever back in Chicago and whatever, which obviously kind of stuff that Chuck highly disapproved of, and understandably so, and was trying to reform him. Um, I always thought that Saul Goodman was just basically, well, not just, but one of the aspects of Saul Goodman was like he was kind of an upgraded Slippin' Jimmy. He's like he just took it to another level and did it within the confines of the law up to a certain point until he was working outside the law. So in a way, it's weird because it's almost by him eventually becoming Saul Goodman, it's also him kind of reverting to what he used to be, but maybe something worse, since now, as we keep starting to touch on, he's going to be getting involved, as we all know, with much more serious criminal elements than just simply conning some guy with a fake coin or stamp or whatever kind of cons he used to run in the past.
Right.
So, where were we with him? Oh, so we had the flash forward or flashback or flash something, whatever.
Yeah.
And
No. Do you know why that? I mean, do you have an idea? I haven't given it any thought, but why that flash forward existed? Why it's in this episode? How it relates to what we saw?
I can give you my theory on it, but that's all it would be.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sure it's good. So tell me, and if it's crap, I'll just pretend I like it.
okay, so with Saul Goodman on Breaking Bad, the last time we saw him was when he was with Walt before he got shipped out to, as we came to know on this show, literally he did end up at a Cinnabon in Nebraska, whatever, as Gene, but and which is yet another him taking on yet another persona. So that seems to be his thing for his entire life, whatever. But at that point, he was already, when he's with in that basement or whatever you call it with Walt. He's already in that kind of that transition phase, so to speak, because he's we know he's the doorway to a different life and whatever whatever it's going to be. This scene, therefore, because it's what happens before he makes that final call. it's so to a certain extent, or very much so, it's his last moments as Saul Goodman. You know, because he's still dressed that way. He's got the money. He's even trying to rip off Francesca by only giving her the one role. But he's still this is the last days of Saul Goodman, so to speak. So you look at that there, and that's how you start the episode with. How does this episode end? This episode ends with Jimmy going to see his PPD officer, kind of like a supervisor. Whatever. It's kind of like it's almost like a probation officer for lawyers who are, lost their license or something. I don't know. Or maybe he is simply a probation officer. They kept using the phrase PPD. If we had our legal expert with us this week, I had a number of legal questions I was going to ask him, but he didn't have power, so couldn't join us.
Huh.
But when he asks him what his plans will be after he's finished the 9 month after the 9 months and 24 days or whatever the number was that and finishes his PPD, and then he says all that stuff. He goes off on saying he's gonna be a lawyer again. He's gonna have a bigger office. He's gonna work at Kim. He's gonna take a bunch of cases. He's gonna win them. He's seeing himself. He's seeing his future as he's going to be this great lawyer. He's going to be well known. He's going to be a winner. Whatever. He's forecasting this future, a lofty sounding future of himself in the legal profession and what his life is going to be, and with Kim, working with her in this big office somewhere. That's how he sees that beginning, and we see at the end of it. It's like, yeah, it didn't quite go that way. Certain things actually came true. He did become well known.
That still could come true, though. I mean, there's a lot of time where something could have happened. So, I don't think we're going to see them get together again like that, but you never know.
Well, to be more clear, even though I didn't think I had to be, I don't mean that what he said doesn't happen, but we're seeing what the end result is. If it's a movie, that might happen an hour and 10 minutes into the movie, but by the 2-hour mark, that might not be where it finishes. You know what I'm saying? And so they showed you, this is where the Saul Goodman, at least, story is going to end. And right there, he's talking about something which, in some ways, could be the beginning of it, at least as far as him becoming a lawyer again. Because the thing to keep in mind, which is one of the things I'm kind of curious about, is he's going to be practicing law, but as we know on Breaking Bad, he's practicing law under the name Saul Goodman. So that's kind of I don't know how simply one can just change their name with their law license or not. Again, don't have a legal expert here to ask. The one time I would have questions for him. We'll ask him next time he's on, I guess. So I don't know if that's a complication or it's really simple, because I know people can change their names simply, but I don't know if it's any different if you're an officer of the court or a lawyer or whatever. Not to mention all the other crap with him. So I just think that was their way of... it was almost underscoring, in case anyone had forgotten, underscoring the actual tragic nature of what he says at the end of this episode, because it's like, oh, what's such a grand vision of where you want to... what you want to end up doing and how you foresee the rest of your life, when in fact, yeah, this is what's going to happen. And we already know from that point on that he becomes Gene in Nebraska, who's such a happy fella. So, I think that's why I do not. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't expect there to be any other Saul Goodman flashback forward, whatever we want to call them this season. But then again, this was such a shocker. Who the heck knows? I don't know. Maybe they'll break with tradition, and we will get another Gene moment. I have no idea. But I think the reason why this was here was to kind of bookend the show like that. It's kind of like, here's the end, here's the beginning, kind of an idea. So that's probably why they wouldn't bother with a Gene moment again.
Right. I don't know. I want to see some Gene. I want to see how Gene becomes the Cinnabon manager. Because I mean, he has to have some kind of training, presumably, like before he can get to that position. So how does he get that? I mean, I want to understand the logistics behind it.
Well, basically, if when you know someone who knows someone, they get you jobs like that. As far as I know, so.
But you still need to know how to do it. I mean, you can't just go in there,
Well,
say pretending to be skilled at it, and then just
I'm guessing he went through training.
yeah.
Like
But how do you get trained to work at a Cinnabon except at another Cinnabon? You can't just go to hey,
well,
watch these videos of these standards and practices by this specific company.
well, maybe that's what he did.
Yeah,
You
not
want
back.
so you want a storyline that they only give us about 5 to 7 minutes of every season. You want to make sure one of them is showing us how he got trained to work at Cinnabon. Okay.
I really need to see that. That's like my holy grail, I think.
Okay. Dear Vincent Peter.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's almost too bad that they spend so little time with the Gene stuff, because if I was going to take it to, for me, just a more of an extreme, like I would like to see the day he arrives in Nebraska, and how he does that shift, and just how does he acclimate to that kind of life? What are his neighbors like? Does he ever speak to anybody? Is he really that sad and lonely a soul as has been presented on this, in the little bits that we've gotten? I'm curious. I can't remember, what does he drive?
Yeah. Well, I like watching Odenkirk play all these characters, and pretty much all characters in anything I've seen him in. So I'm looking forward to whatever they'll show us. Show us burned out, freaked out Gene. Show us, I mean, Saul Goodman. I mean, for two straight seasons of just Saul Goodman before he meets Walt and Jesse. I mean, just show me whatever the hell you guys want to show me. It'll be worth seeing.
Oh, yeah.
To me, who doesn't find it boring.
Well, I never find Odenkirk boring, so.
Yeah, I'm mocking whatever idiot.
I know, yeah. Oh, the Quora. Oh, you can mock the Quora person. That's fine.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be. I don't want it to be like a blanket statement. I find that distasteful.
No. I'm mocking it's a blanket statement to anybody who finds this or Mad Men boring, but somehow thinks Game of Thrones has amazing pacing. That kind of person can go fuck themselves forever, in their own small-minded, cool way. Have fun, yes.
We're coming to you very live. So back to Jimmy.
Yeah, and nothing wakes me up in the middle of the night like a Game of Thrones rant.
Yeah, it's kind of like my Gotham ones, I guess, sort of. Okay, so Jimmy, basically working at the phone store, and he's waiting to get business up and running, and at some point in the episode, he decides, while Kim's working at home, he's going to go back, and he basically buys all the phones himself, probably with some of the money he had from the Hummel figure, and he's going to go try to sell them on the street to all the punks, ruffians, and degenerates out in Albuquerque, or whatever. I love the fact that the first, like, when he first does it, and those first three kids just think he's a narc. Of course he looks like he's a narc. How could he? And I love it. It's like, look at the car. I was like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. Hello, undercover. You look like a total narc. The thing I didn't know he still has the space at the nail salon still. Because he goes back to the nail salon, like, to change his clothes. I didn't know he still had that space. Is he paying?
No.
Does he pay rent there? I don't. Does he? Is it just there? I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, presumably, but I'm not really sure. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen him go there. I remember he went back there and spent a night there at some point, but I don't remember why.
Yeah, I guess I'm not clear on it, or maybe he just, for all I know, he just happens to still have the keys, and because I think when he's gone there, it's been like, in the middle of the night, obviously. So, yeah, he puts on, the cheesy running suit, and he's making the rounds, and of course, he does most of it at the doghouse. which where you've actually been. Is that correct? You went there, didn't you?
Yeah, and actually, I was going to say that the seat that he's sitting at the counter in this episode, I actually sat at that seat last time I was there, eating a chili cheese dog and a burger. The
Right.
second time I went there.
Oh, I was about to say, did you have a chili cheese dog and a burger at the same time? Jeez.
Yeah, I eat a lot sometimes.
Yeah, it kills me. I hate you.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I probably so like hiked like 75 miles on that trip too. So
oh,
it's a
I hate you for that too. So,
come with me sometime. You'll probably get burned out by my pace, but you'll see some cool stuff, and you'll get to eat like a freaking awesome gluttonous pig at the end. And trust me, that stuff never tastes as good as when you freaking earn it by doing some crazy shit.
then we can compare killing notes and stuff. So, and we get this really pretty awesome music montage of him selling the phones to all these different people. Um, uh, that I really enjoy. I really did enjoy that one. I mean, I kind of whenever they go the music montage route on this show, much like its predecessor, I typically have always enjoyed them. This one, I think I got more of a kick out of because of all the different odd-looking characters he encounters. Ranging in age and outfits and hairstyles and whatnot. And then he actually goes over and the cast of freaking the Sons of Anarchy freaking pulls up practically in front of the fucking place. Curse, sorry. And he actually has a nerve to go up to probably the largest group of toughest looking people possible, and clearly sells them the rest of his phones. And then it's like, and of all things, when he gets back to his car, those three, little dipshit punks that he first ran into and called him a narc. And we see them watching a couple times during all the montages and whatever. Unlike the motorcycle gang guys, they're the ones who end up jumping him for his money, which is
definitely different. I mean, because they definitely were playing it and shooting it as if him going up to the bikers and doing that was going to be his, biting off more than he can chew, going a step too far. But that wasn't it. It was just these punk asses, and I kind of hope that he hires Mike to kick the shit out of him.
I had that thought of like, I wonder if there'll be a way for him to ever get his quote unquote revenge on them, but I suspect no. I don't see it. It'll probably take something away from all this, maybe if they did. Although it makes us makes you kind of frustrated. Like, but so I guess it was that. Oh, that's right. And then when he shows back up at home that night, when she sees all the bruising, whatever. And also, it's also interesting. I'm trying to remember. Did he get knocked around? Didn't he get knocked around a little bit in the very beginning of season 1 when he was dealing with Tuco, or was it just the kids getting beaten up? Did he get knocked about a little bit or not? I don't remember.
I don't think he got roughed up, but I could be wrong.
Well, this is the first serious roughing up he's had on the show. At the very
okay. on this show, yeah, he's definitely got his fair share of Breaking Bad beatdowns. But
that's where I'm going with this, because again, if you go back to that opening flash forward back whatever, Saul still has a bit of the bruising from the beating he took from Jesse,
right?
Because that happened not too long before that. Because I was watching, I was like, oh look, it's like future bruising. It's like he's got a little bit of it there, and then whatever. Like, I just remember seeing that. It's like, oh, that's right. I remember why. Because I was like, he's got a bruise. Like, oh, it's because that's when Jesse beat the crap out of him. I always like to think that they probably had to go back and just match everything up to make sure. Like, this is what his hair looked like back, when he was.
Oh yeah, they didn't botch that one, so totally.
I actually am looking forward to. If we get into the Saul Goodman stuff, dealing with the hair and the question of, is that his hair? I don't think so. Anyway, so he has that moment with Kim where it sounds like first of all, it sounds like he's actually going to take her up on the idea of going to see a therapist. And at the point he said it, I was thinking he might actually be. There might be a bit of honesty here because he isn't deflecting to another from something else at that point when he says that. I think. But there's that interesting thing he says when he's talking to her, when he's beating himself up for what happened, because he's saying it shouldn't have happened, because back in the day this would never have happened to him, and she's like, "What are you talking about? Because just because you were a con guy doesn't mean you wouldn't have gotten beaten up by somebody." But it's the whole thing, like he was just so much more aware of people on the street and his surroundings and the elements, whatever, and something like that never would have happened to him. So it's more, to me, it's like he's more beating himself up because he wasn't as careful as he should have been. I don't think he's really regretting the actual decision to sell the phones to. Although he ends up taking down the paint, he ends up removing the letters from the store. Did you notice that when they just before they cut away to the next scene, he hasn't taken down all the letters? I think it said something like "S the man" or something like that.
Yeah.
Did I write it down? No, I probably didn't write it down. But I think it said like "S the man," which I thought was like, oh, like Saul the man. Anyway, I don't know if there's. I mean, since we kind of jumped around a bit, I think that kind of sort of covers a lot of the stuff. I mean, is there anything else about the Jimmy stuff that really kind of stood out as far as something that caught your ear, eye, or curiosity?
Well, it's conversation with Howard.
Oh, the Howard stuff.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you think of the Howard scene?
I mean, they're good, excellent acting by Patrick Fabian again, which I like to say for some reason. But yeah, just really, just a scene I wasn't expecting to have. Probably not something that they necessarily needed to do. It's just kind of one of those kind of coincidences. But it was good to see, and I mean, definitely what's going on with Howard is not it's not pretty.
Right.
And I get the impression that Jimmy, he might feel, he isn't quite as much of an ass about it as he was earlier in the season. I mean, he kind of seems like he kind of maybe feels a little bad for Howard on this.
But not bad enough.
No, not bad enough to do the right thing,
right.
Of course. But you can kind of see that it's there at least. So he kind of, so that's the thing.
It made me very uneasy because.
Well, yeah, it's. Because to be, even though they had a confrontational relationship for a variety of reasons, I mean Howard wasn't that bad of a guy and was definitely consistently an advocate for Jimmy, more so than he probably should have been at certain times. But in the battle between Jimmy and Chuck, Howard was not, wasn't the bad guy. So to see him going through this as part of this, even though, yeah, he probably, he kind of, turned the knife a little bit when he was getting Chuck out of there, or twisted the knife, I guess that's the correct turn of phrase.
Right, but he's not the one. But he's not the one who put the knife in the back to begin with. He just twisted it. To use that analogy or whatever. It was just. It's an interesting situation because when you have the character who's your protagonist, your quote unquote hero, and you put them in a situation where there's something like, oh, you want them to do the right thing here, and then they don't, and it's like, so they let you down in some form, and right. we can think of any number of shows, and we don't need to go into any of them, but we know any number of shows that we watch, usually the really good ones, there are any number of moments where our main character, they have feet of clay. Or their motivation, or maybe either you go as far as them being an anti-hero, or maybe their motivations aren't always for the best at all times. Doesn't matter. Every quality AMC show that we've watched, be it Breaking Bad, Mad Men, *Halt and Catch Fire*, all the way down, has had that, as well as FX and all the others. This is one of those Jimmy moments where you kind of want to the guy is tortured. He can't. This is a guy who normally looks like he's as well put together as anyone you've ever seen. The way he takes care of himself, his wardrobe, his demeanor, his look, and he's falling apart because he's racked with guilt over the death of your brother, and you kind of know that whether you think he had any part in it or not, you could take that off him,
Right.
and you don't, and
Mm.
that's really that's a hard one. That's like I said, that's what made me kind of uneasy. But I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that
and
that
he's kind of in a tough position too. I mean, like the only way he can really, how can he take it off him without kind of like doing the Irene thing where he really has to like, just make himself look like complete shit? Because he pretty much has to admit, just like, yeah, it was me that got the malpractice thing, screwed up.
he would
And then him, it's
well,
the sweet spot for revealing that information is
right,
long past. So
but
letting Howard go through hell for a while, there isn't really, other than just like
but
saying like, you know what, Chuck has stuff going on, don't feel bad,
yeah,
whatever.
that's what I'm
Nothing.
saying. He wouldn't. I mean, at the very least, I'm not saying he should come clean because I don't foresee that. Not with Howard in any case. But he could say, keep in mind, the last thing Howard heard him tell him was, well, I guess it's going to be your cross to bear, you know, as opposed to like Howard, no one person is the reason why someone else chooses to kill themselves. Don't take that onto yourself. This has been something that's been going on for a while. My relationship with him, everything that happened between us, it wasn't any one thing that led to this. You can't. This is not your, or just basically, it's not your fault because it's not. That's all he had to say. It's not your fault. And the fact that he didn't give him that, I think, has kept him on this perpetual torture train that he's kept himself on. And again, it's unfortunate because again, Howard might not be the greatest guy all the time, but we've seen enough times that he, at least at certain points, he's tried to do the right thing. He was hogtied by the Chuck situation more often than not. Could he be a dick at times? Yes, but everybody can be. Both of us can be. But it was a scene I wasn't expecting. It was kind of an odd coincidence for them to both be in the same to run into each other in the bathroom. And I was like, did he plan this? And I was watching the scene, and I was like, nope, didn't plan this. Just one of those wacky coincidences. But it definitely lent something to it. And also, it kind of gave a different motivation to Jimmy ripping up the number for the therapist at the end of the
Right.
scene.
Yeah.
Because I think if he had just done that off the bat, it would have been like, okay, I was never planning to do this. I was never taking this seriously. But seeing that Howard is going to therapy twice a week and undoubtedly someone probably really respected and expensive and whatever, and it's clearly not doing him any good whatsoever. He's like, why would I even bother with this? It's not that I think I need help that much, but not the way Howard does. So it was an interesting little moment there.
Right. Yeah.
I can't believe I almost left out the Howard moment. Oof, wow.
Fine. It is 1:42 Eastern time.
Oh my god. Yeah, I know. Thanks.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're wrapping her up since it's getting there.
Yeah, I would really love to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
But I will say I did enjoy this episode more. I mean, I liked last week's, but I think this one was definitely at least a few notches above that one. Good episode last week. This one, I think, just gave me a bit more. And yes, maybe it's in some ways because it scratched my Breaking Bad itch a little bit, but it just gave us some really great moments and scenes throughout it. So both good episodes, but I like this one better.
Yeah.
Okay. So, speaking of liking, if you like this podcast, you might like hanging out on our Facebook page as well. It's the Serious TV Drama Podcast page, where, yes, you can like the page and join the conversation about shows like Better Call Saul and so many others. You can also track us down on iTunes as the Serious TV Drama Podcast. Subscribe to our feed, where you can also rate and review us. You can essentially Google just Serious TV Drama Podcast. I think STVD Podcast works if you Google it as well. And you can find our homepage. You can find our YouTube. We don't actually have a YouTube page, but our podcast just now magically appears on YouTube, which basically means I think I must have clicked the button at some point like a year ago, and now it's there all the time, even though it keeps getting banned in different countries in Europe. And finally, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle there is @STVD Podcast. It's STVD as in Serious TV Drama podcast. Are, is there going to be some? I recall. Is there going to be some issue next week? Are you going to be away or something?
Yeah, I'm going to be on another one of my Southwest vacations, so I will not be around. I don't. Yeah, most likely if like the weather ends up being garbage Monday night, and I end up getting a motel room instead of camping in the mountains or desert somewhere, then potentially I would end up watching the show and then could maybe record Wednesday night or something while I'm, traveling home or something. I mean, in a motel, but says a good, I might make it, but I probably won't.
Okay. All right. So next week we'll see what happens.
Weak, powerless Brian can join you this time.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. If Wally Pip's going to be doing the Southwest vacation, we can bring in Lou Gehrig and we can record. No, I'm just kidding. As for just, I hate having you deal with the little post production stuff while you're off and doing stuff. Because why would you want to deal with that?
I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back. I'd be back Thursday night. So if push came to shove, we could just release it on Friday too. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Yes. But even so, it doesn't take me long to put these things together, so it's fine. If I bring my computer with, I'll make it happen if needed.
The 30-something people who listen to each podcast aren't going to care that much. Anyway, I'm so disappointed. So I was actually I was scrolling back to earlier years. I think it was. Oh, I was actually looking for the Already Called Saul podcast to send that as a link to somebody. And I think I mentioned this last week anyway, but this part I didn't mention. But when I scroll through the STVD podcast site, whatever we call it, it's like this stvdpodcast.podbean.com or whatever. You can see the number of downloads all the episodes gotten. And I was seeing, again, these are like astronomically low numbers compared to a lot of people's podcasts, but still I'm looking at numbers where, wow, these were downloaded like 7 times more. A multiple of 7 times more than what we're getting now, and somewhere we lost people. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I'm rambling, so let me stop the podcast now. Okay, so we'll figure out something next week. Thank you for keeping us both up, and have a good night, Dan, and good night to everybody out there.
Yep, good night, everybody. And the cat that's rolling over upside down, looking at me as he falls asleep, also says good night to you guys.
Yeah, I don't know where my cat is, so he's not saying goodnight to anybody.
All right.
Yeah. Bye. Goodbye.